Hello and welcome to the Homesick to Happy Movers podcast. So today we're talking with Nancy Powell and we're talking about adventure. And adventure is something that fills my cup up and I love it. So I'm really excited to bring this conversation to you, all of the listeners. So Nancy is a fun-loving, action-oriented life coach. She focuses on helping people live their fully live their life. She draws on her wide variety of work experience, extensive travels, and unique life adventures. She helps people to identify and achieve their biggest goals. Her particular passion is showing moms how to serve their families by creating epic dreams and income streams. So welcome, Nancy, to the podcast.
Yay, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, this is gonna be a great conversation. So how did your passion for adventure start?
Oh my goodness. I think it probably for a lot of people that love adventure, and I don't know if this is everybody because I believe everybody can learn to love adventure, but mine did start when I was very young. I had a lot of books growing up in my house, and I remember this one book that my parents bought, and I would just look through, read the pictures as I was a little kid, and it had like a page on every country, and you could just like see a little map, see a picture of the traditional dress, read a few statistics about it, and like I just loved that stuff so much. And then my father had a job where we got to move around a little bit, and as a teenager, when I turned 13, we moved to Japan. And so everything that I had been gearing up for and like kind of dreaming about, picturing, seeing like this whole wide world, like really became real life for me at 13 when I spent those three very formative years overseas. And wow, I got the adventure bug and it never left.
Yeah, once you catch the adventure bug, it's there. It's there.
Right.
Yeah. So I love when you said that you believe everybody can learn to love adventure.
Yes.
I absolutely believe the same thing. And I also think it's crucial to learn to adventure.
Yes.
To get out of those like mundane days, right? Where everything, it feels like you're repeating the same day over and over again.
Yeah.
Did you ever have that show up in your life?
Yeah. Did I ever have the same day show up over and over? Yes.
Yeah.
And I've worked really hard. I've tried to craft my life very intentionally so that it didn't feel like I had that kind of life. But for a season, I did fall into that a little bit. And I just felt like I was getting up and going to a job. My daughter was getting up and going to school. My husband was getting up and going to a job that had like really burned him out. And I was just like, we need something really, dramatic to happen. And that's actually when I ushered in probably one of our biggest or the biggest like adventures of our family's life at that point was after that season. So,
Okay. Yeah. So after you're like something needs to change.
yes.
Then you embarked on the biggest adventure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
I would love to. I was just looking through some pictures, like, because when I need to get inspired, I normally think of travel, like, okay, we'll take a trip. But instead, this time when I was looking at pictures, I found this really inspiring, like, rock area of nature with the waterfall and everything. And I was like, this is one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. I have got to see what this is. And maybe we can plan like one of our annual trips to it or something. And I read about it, and it was a state park in upper like New York State. Okay. I live in North Texas. And I was like, wait a minute. This isn't like the Grand Canyon. It's not like Disney World. It's not New York City. This is not something that ever was just going to be in our normal rotation, a radar for most people to go to something like this state park, but it's gorgeous. It inspires me. It makes me want to get up and go and hike and see the water and be there with my family. And I was like, I need a year to travel to see all of these kind of places so that I don't miss spots like this. And as soon as that thought went through my head, it was over, girl. I was like, I need a year to travel. And I went and picked my daughter up from school that day. And I think I took her out to frozen yogurt as she tells the story. And I was like, how would you like it if mommy and daddy took you out of school for a year and we traveled around the country and we lived in an RV? And she was like, okay, that sounds fun. I got her on my side. And then we went home to tackle daddy.
Good strategy.
Yes. And, he wasn't as quick of a yes as I was or she was. Somebody has to be the more careful, thinker and methodical planner. But eventually he got there too, and it didn't take very long. So we decided that for a year, that ended up being her 5th grade year. And she's been we have really great public schools in our area. So she's always been like in school, except for this year. we called it road schooling. We took her out of school, rented out our house, kind of left it in the care of some friends, more like, and bought an RV for a year. And it did indeed travel around the country. We saw 38 states. We went to tons of national parks, but also some of those state parks, some of those more obscure places, monuments, museums, saw friends and family all over the country. Just knocked so many places off our list, and that we got to experience it together. Because really, what drove me so much is like, there are only so many summers that I'm going to have with my daughter. And even if we get to go to one new place every year, I want to be there. I want to see it. I want to experience her experiencing it. And yeah, so that was our biggest adventure.
Yeah, that sounds so amazing. It's also something that I want to do.
Yay, do it. We talked to so many people that mostly a lot of older couples, sometimes like at these parks where we would stay. And when they found out what we were doing, so many of them said, we wanted to do that when we were younger, and we didn't do it. And you're going to be so glad you did it. So that's our encouragement to people. It's like, find a way, do it. Not everybody can do it for a year. Not everybody can do it fully the same way, but whatever adventure looks like, whatever you think is too big, it's not. And do it, and you'll be glad you did.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So, what were some of the ways that you got your husband on the same page for the adventure you had planned?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because you do like kind of marry opposites, right? So one
Right.
thing that I will just admit that like helped was that he was also in such a place in his job where he realized like he was kind of living that Groundhog Day, and he was more open to a change. So partially it's the right timing.
Yes.
Partially it was like kind of the research that, I had put into it and said, this is how it can be done. I started following other people that really were doing it. And then we had a couple of circumstances that were like, it was the right timing. I let my husband end up talking us into the timing, because when I first started thinking about it, I guess when it was just more of a nebulous idea, I really kind of was talking to him, saying, hey, do you think that we can travel for a year when Ainsley graduates high school? Or I like really zoned in on my plan. And he said, look, when she graduates high school and she's going to be 18, she's going to have her own plans. Like, we're not going to get a year, like, he's like, if we plan a really cool trip, we might get like 3 weeks, but it's like that, and I was like, okay, well, you're right. So if we want to do something like this, then it needs to be like, before high school. And then he was like, oh, well, in high school, you don't want to take a year off because da, 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 da. And, in middle school is really crucial. And she probably doesn't want, and I was like, so basically this year, you're saying we need to go this, like, it was her fourth grade year and the year before she goes into middle school. And so I kind of let almost hit his timing, like push it. And then he realized like he's the one that had made the case for it. And we have always valued learning by travel and experiencing together. We had already taken our daughter on a couple trips that were more unusual for some people. Like we'd gone to Ottawa in Canada and done all the museums up there. We had even taken her to Uganda, East Africa, and spent some time with some friends there. So we very much kind of valued experience and education. And so that all helped. And then just honestly telling him, because the money side always comes into it. We're in our mid 40s when we did it. And I was like, look, I would rather us work a couple years later than we thought we were going to have to. We don't we're not planning on a full-on retirement anyway, right? The healthiest, happiest people we see are the ones who are doing something they love well into their 70s and well into their 80s, and so I'll keep working or doing what I have to do. Like on the other side, I would much rather take this time off while we have relative youth and our health and our daughter experiencing this with us.
Yes.
That's what I want to do. And so when I put all of that together, then eventually I gotta okay, yes, let's make this happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. So to the people who are listening, who are thinking about adventure and they haven't really stepped into this embracing adventure, what benefits does adventure bring?
Oh my gosh. I think adventuring opens up the whole wide world. So I keep going back to the education part of it, but our world is only getting smaller and smaller, and with such important things happening, I just think realizing that there's other people and that people are good for the most part. Like when you meet the actual other people are friendly. Different people want to be your friends. And so you get out there and you get to meet people from all over or from different places. And I mean, when I say from all over, I mean, for us who had always lived in the suburbs, going and meeting the people that lived on the farm was very, very different, and then going and meeting the people who lived and worked in New York City and all of the different countries that come together. It's it's all of it. So I think adventure like that. And it's just why stay on the same page in a book, right? I think any kind of adventure just helps you go through all of the chapters. Life is a whole book and you want to read the whole story, and you don't have to go to another country for that at all. One way that I like to really encourage people if they want to start stepping out to adventure is you can usually pick what is different to you that's in a 2 or 3 hour drive, which might be going and spending a day on the farm. See if there's one that you can interact with, or find what your nearest downtown city is and go to the little, little Havana or little Chinatown and walk around and eat at a restaurant there and, go take pictures and adventure. It will just, it's fun, and you will learn so much more, and you'll have stories to tell, and the bonding memories that come from adventure, I think, are some of the things that bind families and friends closest together, kind of those shared experiences. So I think education, I think fun, and I think memories and stories to live on for the rest of your life.
Yeah, that's awesome. So something that you just said was going out to a place that is different.
Yes.
And I love that. like we don't have to experience just going out to a restaurant 2 hours away. Like we can do something different, which I think
Yes.
is so powerful, but that also relates to adventure,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So can people who are working 40 hours a week still adventure?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes, for sure. I mean, like for example, the couple things that I just said are things that can be done even in one single afternoon. And if you live a little bit farther, they can take up a whole day, maybe go adventure, for your whole day off. You absolutely can. And then if you like, one of my favorite ways to adventure is getting into nature. And so then if you can, bump it up from an afternoon or a day, go spend one night in the woods. Like adventure doesn't have to be just foreign or exotic or travel. Adventure can be hiking among the trees and going on a nature walk. See how many different leaves you can find. See how many different types of animals you can find. Um,
Yeah.
find water. Find, just take pictures. Go on a photo hunt. Um, so absolutely it can. And as a matter of fact, I believe that the people who are working 40 hours or more a week are the people who have to find a way to get adventure in the most, because it's going to feed your soul when the rest of your life, the rest of your schedule might not be as flexible. You've got to find those ways to do adventure.
Right. Yeah. I think that is a key point, that adventure feeds you. Adventure helps you. So if you're in a tough time in life, adventure will make a bright spot in your life.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm. So like you've talked about a few different styles. Do you have any other different styles of adventure that you've experienced?
Well, this is going to sound really different. It's mostly like traveling, meeting people, um, the nature, but also when you really are in a place or a season of time where you can't go many places, like some of us found ourselves there recently.
Mhm.
Audiobooks. So that's just my, like, I don't think that's a complete replacement. I think you have to find a way, but if there's a short season, you kind of just want to start plugging in. I love listening to audiobooks, like read by the people, like with different accents, like British murder mysteries, for example, like little things like that. And then another place that I find is music. Like I
Okay.
learned to speak Spanish by listening to Spanish music. I loved the sounds. My friends from Venezuela introduced me to some of their favorite singers, like, 25 years ago. And I just loved the music so much. And I would get them to write down the lyrics. And then I would take my Spanish dictionary. It's going to be so much easier for people now. And look it up. And because I was so like, I need to know the lyrics to these beautiful love songs or these fun dance songs or whatever. And now that's so fun because say take an afternoon of adventure, like little, like mini adventures when you can get them. We just had Cinco de Mayo. My husband and I went out to a local place that was celebrating, and they had like live Latin music and everything going. And I could get up and dance to the merengue and the salsa and know some of the music, translate a few things for my husband. And, that's what I call mini adventure, in life. It's not the same thing. Maybe it's going away and hugely getting out of it, but it's those little fun things like different music and different experiences and getting out on the dance floor. And yeah, so music, books, I think if you have a heart for adventure and eyes that are open for adventure, you're going to find it in all of these things around you.
Yeah. Kind of like adventure is a perspective almost.
Oh, yes, I like that a lot. I
Mhm.
like that. Adventure is a perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. So is there an adventure age limit? For instance, like our culture usually says, go out and adventure from 20 to 25, settle down, work, and then adventure after 60. Like what's your opinion of that?
Gosh, no. Adventure when it's absolutely best for you, and ideally adventure a little bit all of the times, and I really do think that like our grand adventure story shows that. When was it best for us? When when did we have like the family that we thought was at the right ages? When did we have the biggest desire, and relatively for us, like our best health and all that kind of stuff? For us, it was right in the mid 40s. That is not when most of society is going to tell you go take a year off. You can't do that in your early or later, but this was very different. And but that's what was best for us. And so
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. So how do people develop a spirit of adventure?
gosh, I think it's be willing to be open, be willing to be a little bit nervous, but know that's okay. Like, you might want to go somewhere and you don't know how it's going to turn out, but just be willing to be open, be willing. And to me, that's what adventure is when you are open to going and doing something that you do not completely control the outcome. That is an adventure, right? Because you're going to somewhere new, or you're trying something different, or just something a little bit scary. And it's taking that step and finding, it's deciding the adventurous perspective, right? It's deciding that you're going to find the fun in the doing of it, not necessarily the outcome. I have been to places that I didn't love. I have had experiences that I do not want to repeat again. But even those, and those are so few compared to the ones I loved, like so few compared to the ones I loved. But even in that, I've learned. Even in that, I come out with fun stories. So I think it's just saying, like, like we say, kind of learning is the process and enjoy the journey and not just the destination. With adventure, it's just be willing to be open to letting yourself enjoy the adventure itself and not necessarily the outcome, and realize that whatever you think is holding your back, whatever you think is holding you back, is you're probably playing the worst case scenario in your head, which is not going to happen, and so, like, just try it. And yeah, and see what happens. Like,
Mhm.
give yourself permission to not know exactly how it's going to turn out. Don't have your happiness tied to exactly what you think is going to happen. You're trying to climb a mountain, for example, like real life, going on a big hike, for example. Don't make it about, well, I've had a successful adventure if we go hiking and I summit the mountain. Like, that's great, but have a fun adventure because you got out on the mountain, because you moved your body in different ways, because maybe you ran into like a chipmunk on the trail, maybe because you actually got to smell what walking through pine trees like actually smells like, because you and your friend like laughed so hard like you almost peed your pants, at like a bird that scared you in a tree or something like that. Like, let the adventure itself be fun, and don't tie your success or your happiness to an outcome. And then adventure is just wide open.
Yeah, yeah. Celebrating those little wins along
Yes,
the way,
yes,
and those moments of happiness and actually seeing them, like, is
yes.
so important.
Mm.
Yeah. So, a part of adventure is creating huge dreams and goals for your family. And this is something that you coach on. Could you talk about the process of creating huge dreams?
Yes, I can. I can a little bit, because I could just go on and on forever, and I won't do that. Because I love helping people process their big dreams. But um here is one of my absolute go-tos that I tell people, is start with the end in mind. So no matter what you're doing, like if you're working on a project, picture the end in mind. If you're thinking about your life and what you're going to do, picture the end in mind. And like, some people might think, picture the end of my life, that's so morbid. And I'm like, no, it actually puts everything into crystal clear perspective for you. Because when you are there at the end of your life, so much of the other stuff that you thought was important it's going to be very obvious it wasn't important, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're there, hopefully, God willing, you're going to be there at the end of your life with the people that you love the most, that love you the most, and your legacy that you're passing down to them. To me, that makes things so clear about how I want to live and what I want to be about. So when you're in that moment, and like we all hope that we get to like say those last words, right? I mean, if you were getting to be in that beautiful moment, what is it that you would want to have passed on? You would want to pass on that, like that adventuring with family was important to you, that learning lessons through nature was important to you, that trying different things, that being brave, being open, being flexible, that these are the things that you want to pass down to your grandkids, and that you want them to pass down to their grandkids, that they had this crazy great grandmother Nancy or Acacia or whatever that encouraged them to go and try and see the world and meet new people and be open, that we have this whole huge beautiful world like just waiting to be explored. So I say start with the end in mind, and your values might be different than what my values, that I want to pass down are, but start with that and see what you want to leave behind, and then start taking steps back to craft that life, and realize that you are not going to craft that life in 6 weeks. So don't get frustrated and give up. But you will be amazed at how closely you can start crafting that life in 1 year, and then 2 years, and then 5 years. And that is the legacy you're going to leave behind. So that's a little bit of how I do it.
And I feel like, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like if you would craft a life like that, it's crafting your life with your core values.
Yeah.
And I would imagine, because I haven't done this process yet, but that it would bring even more joy to your life.
Absolutely. Because when you start crafting a life like that, your whole aim isn't just to get to one beautiful last day. You're making every day more the type of life that you want to live. But starting with the end in mind and working for it is just like, gives you that clarity to start, because so many of us are like, okay, well, after this, I'm going to start living the life I want, or after this, I'm going to start living. And I'm like, well, if you're not crafting the life you want now, what are you waiting for? Right. Yeah. So whether if somebody's listening to this thing because they love your podcast and adventure isn't their thing, okay, whatever it is, start living the life that's purposeful and meaning to you, and craft that life now. And yes, every single day is going to get a little bit better and a little bit better, because it's not magically going to get to the end of your life and then be that perfect life. You're going to have gotten closer to it every single day along the way.
Yes, I love that. And sometimes I feel like we have an illusion, like, okay, I'm just going to push past this thing. Like, I'm just going to get through this job or get through this project, and then I'll step into my dream life.
Yes, we do feel like that. And you know what? I believe that there are very short seasons where we do have to push through something grueling. But to me, one of those really short seasons where there's a certain project at work, a certain health scare that comes up or whatever, those are the things that last like, 2 weeks to 6 weeks. If it's truly a crisis. If something is lasting more than like 2 weeks to 6 weeks, it's not a crisis anymore. You have to admit that that's your lifestyle. It's not something that you have to just push through, because I'm very goal oriented and teach people to be very goal oriented. And there's sometimes that I have to slip something to the back burner, because we all have that life. We don't like wake up and all have miraculous lives every day. I have all the same issues and maybe more than other people do too. But you have to slide something back to but if it stays on the back burner, or you're just trudging through for a long time, it's showing you what is your value and what's really important to you. And then you just realize, okay, trudging through this job I don't like is going to take longer than 6 weeks. I can't quit it yet and do something else I want to do. So I need to intentionally carve time out of it for doing something that I enjoy, for adventuring, because this is my lifestyle and this is the hand I have right now. So I need to find a way to make there be joy in this whole journey. And your life is going to be so much more pleasant when you start living like that.
Yes, yeah. And when you said that trudging through life is showing you what you value, I feel like a lot of people can relate to that because I, a few years back, I thought I had this set of values, but what I was spending my time on and what I was doing with my life was actually I was valuing something else.
Mm.
Do you find a lot of people get in that space where they identify with one set of values, but their time shows a different set?
Yes, and I think that's so common because we just start clinging to what's familiar. It's just we get to a point where maybe we don't know how to change, or we just think like we have that tomorrow syndrome. Tomorrow is the day I'm changing. Tomorrow is the day, like, I know I'm not doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, but tomorrow. And a couple years goes by and wow, like, yeah, there has to be something. And for some people, that something is hearing a podcast episode like this. And that's why I'm so excited you're sharing on it, because really, sometimes you just need something that comes in and boom, like wakes people up from this like routine thing that they've been part of. That's like, oh gosh, she's absolutely right. I
Mhm.
like, let me change. Like, this is my life. This is my one precious life.
Yes, yes. And let's live it to the full.
Yes, live it fully. Yes.
Yes. So, how can the listeners connect with you on social media?
Oh, great. Probably the best way is on Instagram. I am just simply with Nancy Powell. And I do have a Facebook page for my coaching, but it's Full Strength Life. But Instagram is probably a better way. Or if you want to go to my website with nancypowell.com, a big thing for me is One Precious Life, and I have a small thing on there that is 7 ways to more fully live your one precious life, and they can put in for it, and I will send it to them for free. So
Okay, awesome. And I will have a link below with all of Nancy's contact info as well as the freebie that she has. Um,
great.
so Nancy, if you could give one last piece of adventure for the listeners, what would it be?
Okay, this one little last piece that I would say is you are going to regret more of the things that you didn't do than the things that you did do. So go ahead and take the chance, live the adventure, try the new thing, meet the person, say yes, put yourself out there. Because I do believe at the end, all of us, our goal is to have as few regrets as possible. And I just know from my personal experience and from talking to hundreds and hundreds of people that you are going to regret more of the things that you didn't do than the things that you did, even when they don't go perfectly. So go for it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Nancy, so much for joining me on the podcast.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.